Welcome back. This is the Great KBC and you're watching News Check. Thank you so much for keeping me company after looking at matters education. We are now looking at how the state of the nation is. We do know that the bipartisan talks yesterday, they had a sitting at the Bomas of Kenya, and we will be looking at that and we'll be telling you why. And also we have been having some inter-clan fights in the country. We had some in Garissa on the border of Kericho and also Kisumu, but we'll be looking at that as well. And firstly, we are having the Ma Cultural Week that is currently taking place at the Masai Mara. We are expecting the head of state to officially open that Ma Week, and a lot is there, and I can tell you for a fact is that there's lots of meat, there's a lot of dancing. Allow me now to introduce my panelists. They're not few faces on TV. They have been here a number of times, and we do say a lot of thanks for you guys for actually making the time. Beginning with my immediate left, we have Dr. Harun Issack Hassan, who is a leadership and governance expert. And just next to him, we have advocate of the High Court and also a governance expert, Gibson Gisore. Gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Asante sana.
Yeah, maybe you can begin from what we've seen there, the Ma Cultural Week. I remember, Doc, you were saying that you will be heading there.
I think I should be going there because first and foremost, I love culture. Culture is a beautiful thing. It's something that, has been there from a million years. I mean, you'll find the beauty of a community is restoring their culture. And as you restore your culture, generations to generations will be seen keeping the same and restoring the same culture, meaning that you will still have some root to where you came from and how you used to do your issues. With modern society now in place, we will love our children to reflect on where we came from and the beauty of our cultures before then. I know very well during my grandfather's time, the culture was completely dense. It used to be the real culture. Then when my fathers came, it became a bit lighter, but it's still in existence. But during our generation, things have changed. We have slightly modernized ourselves with a lot of culture, including religious cultures, Western cultures, and of course other communities' cultures because of interaction with each other. And now this time around, in a modern society where people interact so much with digital world, I mean, you'll realize that much of our cultures becomes now an event. It's no longer now a way of life, but it becomes an event where such things, when it's organized, it's only when people reflect on the existence of beautiful cultures like this one we see. I really love our Ma community for maintaining and sustaining this culture. And you see people from Western country, particularly tourists who come to this country, the first thing they will ask you at the airport is, are you a Maasai? Or where are the Maasais? That means for them, they have sustained the momentum in keeping their culture very well. Unlike some of us, who our cultures have been diluted, and much of the things that we tell our children are not visible. It's theories that we give them. And we have a very poor in writing. Nobody has ever documented the way of our cultures, as much of the way it has been documented for the Ma community. So I think for this country, Mao should continue resembling us in terms of sustaining the culture of our society.
Gibson, Doc will be headed to the Ma Cultural Week in a couple of days. I don't know whether you're going to join him, but looking at what we are seeing on TV right now, and picking from what Doc has talked about, the Ma have been able to preserve their culture for ages, and that is why you see that that's why God put the Masai Mara and is it the seventh wonder of the world, the wild beast migration squarely in the Masai Mara. Look at the equipment that they are using, either to light the fire, looking at how they are dressed, looking at what we expect, because we expect a lot of meat, a lot of blood, a lot of milk, and lots of meat.
Bentry, thank you. I won't be joining Daktari in Masai Mara. Daktari comes from the up north, and Maasais are our neighbors, so I know a thing or two about them. But they say mwachamila ni mtumwa.
Yes.
So the Maasai have stuck with their game, they've stuck with their traditions. That's why we are celebrating them. And they're proud of it. I would have wished that in the advent of devolution, we could have given credence to issues culture. Because like in my own community, if you want to learn about my community, you wouldn't know where to start from. I would have expected that the ministries of culture in the local devolved unit could essentially agree on setting up land aside for exercise of traditional dances, for exercise of setting up the very pure traditional homes, which our kids, if I take my kids to Kisii, I can actually tell them this is how people used to live back in the day. So that at least in every community we should be able to have a museum of artifacts which our people used to use. For the Maasai, they are very lucky because they are still living testament of what it is that their grandfathers used to do. But between me and you, Pedro, you can actually attest that you don't know what traditional dress you people used to wear. If they exist, it could be some made-up thing which is akin to what they used to wear. So if we could be able to look at this from that perspective, because we are a tourism country, we cannot only be selling animals to the West and also selling issues to do with the flora and fauna. Culture is also a very important aspect of tourism, and if we can be able to diversify into that area, we'll actually find we will be able to net in a lot of clients in terms of tourism who will be coming. Now, instead of going to only Masai Mara to go and see the animals, they will be going maybe to somewhere where there's a Maasai museum, where they will be learning about Maasai culture. There will be researchers. There are people who are busy researching who come and invest money in research. So these are monies or things which we should be doing to actually make more money for our country or net more money for tourism. Or bring in numbers, because we'll be an epicenter for, we have around 42 cultures. 42 communities, and that is 42 cultures. We could be having 42 museums across the country. You can only imagine.
At least one in every county.
At least one in every county. Do you imagine if you see a beautiful girl from the Oromo? You will maybe want to first visit and know how their people used to behave. Therefore, you will already be a tourist in that particular, and you will be making money. If we could be looking at, and it will be bringing diversity. Not meeting in the streets of Nairobi, and then maybe she does not even know her roots. Then you will not actually be knowing what you are signing up yourself for. So this is something I think we need to look into and be able to base our argument on, because that's what defines what Kenyans are.
Before you go far, I think Wakili has placed a very important point in terms of the responsibility of our leaders and our country at large. You'll find we are subjected to a mandatory subject like English. And recently someone was saying, I saw it on one of the documents, that instead of subjecting ourselves to our language, which is Swahili, and English and these other languages are taken as an option, we take priority to other languages, or even our normal languages. Similarly, we will have had mandatory learning of our culture as a subject in our institution than having geography, than having history of rocks and some, I mean, the culture is something that picks up from a society and tells what kind of society this society has been and what they are now. I mean, it is revolutionized from when we used to be Stone Age to up to date, and we are able to link that with ourselves and being proud of it. But now quite often people want to know Iceland, people want to know the tubes that are being erected in Europe.
And we are having countries actually who are picking up Swahili so that they may, in our curriculum and in their way of life. But unfortunately, we have some cultures here that are actually almost getting extinct. Exactly. And the funny thing is that now we are discussing matters politics, but every time you hear about a big pin or a king pin in any community, the first thing that comes to mind is politics.
Correct.
That's something that we need to change. And away from the culture, of course, we'll be getting back to Narok, where the head of state, and as you can see, it's more or less like final touches. I've seen some of the guests have already streamed in and are getting seated, and the security is quite heightened in that it's a whole week from the Ma community from 4 counties, and it's something that should be actually encouraged. And something quite not about culture, but it's tied to what we are discussing here. Doc, you have participated in peace efforts, and especially in the in the northern part of Kenya. Mandera, we've had some clan wars. Garissa very recently, and even some of the students who are heading home for holidays actually were killed. And we also have had between the Kericho and Kisumu border. We've had some skirmishes which are quite been fueled by, let's say, ethnic clashes. I'd like you to comment on that, coming from a place that you know well what peace really means, and clans are quite kingpins there.
If you want to sleep well, have peace. Because if you don't have peace, you will never get a sleep. And an example of such kind of life, go to our neighbors who are having now an issue and see how the people are stressed with doing their own normal life. Northern Kenya has a unique thing when it comes to issues related to clans. We are so much bonded to clanism. So we know we have several clan members, we have clan leaders, we have community structures, and we have the government structure that is in that ground. Historically, much of the fights has been on natural resources, such as pasture and water. Of recent, it has become power and issues related to governance. The reason being, you'll find a governor has been elected, but he comes from one of the major clans. And subsequently, another major clan, which has been in a competition with this particular governor, after winning the position, he does not assume the office as the governor of everybody, regardless of whether this person has elected him or not, and start marginalizing those who did not vote him in. And much of the clashes you see is coming from the politicians themselves. Of course, the resources that earlier on communities were looking at were natural resources. People are looking at now resources from the county government. And if you are living in that county and you are one of the major clans, and you have not been given employment, you have not been given contracts within the county, you are not involved in any issues related to development within the county, or even your area of major settlement is not visited by these representatives or government leaders, then people tend to develop tension among themselves, and they just wait a provocative things. You can imagine only one person, 2 people fought, they touched their house, and it's something that could have been contained immediately if everybody looks at peaceful situations, or look at issues of security keenly, and the importance of having a peaceful mind. But people said, no, this guy came from this clan, and because of the fact that he relates to a specific governor, the current governor, then they are trying to torture us out of our settlement areas so that we don't fight them later in subsequent elections. So there is a phenomena that has not been in existence before, because our fights before, when it is anchored on natural resources, it wasn't a very serious one. You will see people fight over water and pasture, and now once elders come and sort it out. But these political clashes, which is anchored on clans, is getting out of hand, and it's difficult actually to address. And if there is no goodwill from all the politicians, both at the national level and the county level, then it will be another phenomenon of clashes that northern Kenya will be associated with. We rarely think direct towards development. We always think about our clan member, and sometimes you may not get any beneficial thing from the governor who is your clan. But because he's your governor and you want to sustain that name, then you will start involving yourself in a situation where you don't care about who is who, but you will start destroying people who have been your neighbors for years and years.
And it's only because of clan.
Yeah, just because of clan. And sometimes you don't. It's like similarly like the way some people are just dying in the Azimio's rallies, just because some of them from Nyanza are just fanatics of Raila, and therefore because of that, they don't mind losing their wealth, they don't mind losing their life, because they will just go for demonstration without logically reasoning, why am I engaged in this activity? So much of our problem, beside the historical problems that used to be known, which is no longer an issue, because we no longer we no longer have animals that will graze massively and require water everywhere. It has been all destroyed by the previous droughts. So the little resources or animals that have remained, we're able to contain it. We have enough grazing land, and we have also enough water at the moment. And the problem is the issue of leaders.
Okay.
The third one, which will be my final one, is demarcation or boundaries. I think this is also related to the county and resources from the wards. Every person wants his area to be demarcated as a location or a sublocation or a ward, whatever they term it. And these wards that you see sometimes carves into two communities, and you will find the two communities will be subdivided. And you know, when you subdivide them, that means if you put two wards in where I had my stronghold as one ward with a lot of voters, now means you are trying to subdivide my area or my territory where I have the majority. And now, when that happens, what happens? People will not accept. So people will start saying, even if we have moved people, even if we have been subdivided, then the two sublocations should also be ours. Nobody should be given. What happens usually? You'll see someone identifying another clan, which neighbors or maybe minority in that major clan, subdividing the ward, and then giving the leadership, the local leadership, the chiefs and those other people, and the elders or ward representatives, for that matter, for the county, from the clan that is minority. You see, the whole area is, you are the majority. You are seeing that you must get all the leadership of that sub-clan for that particular location. But again, when it is subdivided and a minority is given the leadership, then they assume that this minority will going to bring their people more into that sublocation or location which has been divided, and then eventually they will have a power to overcome the majority who have been dominating in that sublocation. Yeah. So issues of leadership and the clan is something that we cannot separate at the moment.
Council, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, has been on the receiving end. A lot of people talking about they are not quite doing enough, because mostly these clashes, as we have seen, and as Doc has also mentioned, that is more or less on politics. Look at the recent one. We had a number in the northern region, and now we are having Kericho, Kisumu border, where there have been mooted that a number of politicians are the ones who are actually instigating people.
It's true. We have a constitutional body by the name National Cohesion and Integration Commission. But I would want to say that these guys are very colorless, because you only hear them around the election time. The rest of the time they go sleeping. I don't know if they are doing something. I have not heard about it, because they should be in the forefront. Their work should be actually be outward other than inward, because I think now most of the time they are inward, sitting, taking tea and going to Naivasha or sorts of places to go and discuss dialogue from there, which is quite unfortunate. Instead of going to up north, identifying community leaders, identifying the people who are the opinion shapers of the place, and then putting them on their side, and if there is an issue, they can be able to quickly engage them and then be able to quell some of these issues. I think for them it's an issue of sitting back, waiting for a crisis to happen, and then they can run around and say, now we are mediating. I think either it's their mandate which they don't understand, or their mandate which is not properly expounded. But I think the Constitution, once they are a constitutional body, they need to swing into action. If it's the budget they do not have, they need to fight for their share of the budget, because that is very critical. We can't have communities who have been living together for the longest. The issue of the boundary in Kericho and Nandi and versus Kisumu is not a new thing. It used to exist, but it has gone quiet for some time. What are the reasons it went quiet? Why is it coming up now? There was also the issue in Kilgoris, along the border of Kilgoris. We're also having some sort of games there. It used to exist long time before, during the Kanu regime. Now it's also resurfacing. If it's the issue of boundary, we need to have mechanisms on how to solve some of these issues. Because once we sort some of these issues, then we can be able to start thinking development. Because nobody's going to invest in an area where guys are running around with bows and arrows and burning people's houses. You cannot do any meaningful development. That is on the first part. The second part, I would want to say that the national government needs to come in big. Some of these people who are fighting over these minute resources is because there's no development they have been able to test from the national government. So they are living in their own wallows, and they can do that which they deem fit. They don't feel the sweetness of having power or the sweetness of giving taxes. So I would want to believe you can't have a tarmac place and people are fighting across the tarmac.
Yes.
So if government can come in with projects like schools, health hospitals, or which these people can share, because if we go to the same hospital and we get treated by a guy from your side and the nurse is a person from my side, hardly will we want to destabilize such a situation. So if government can come in now, and the county governments can come in and invest in joint infrastructure which can be able to help these people enjoy some benefits, we will be able to see, because there are several ways of killing a rat, Bentro. If you want to focus it from one way then, and it's not working, then you need to change tactic. If we can be able to have very clear mechanism. The third thing which I will want to say, which is the final, there is the aspect of mediation in terms of looking for cohesion and peace. This is a well-known tactic, or a well-known framework which has been applied across the world. I mean, you see a situation like we're having in Niger, where the president was overthrown. The ECOWAS is trying to mediate. They have sent in mediators who are going to actually be able to discuss peace. What is the roadmap? Because we can't afford having a fight, or the former president being killed the way they were saying they are going to try him and then kill him. So such things are things which you manage as a conflict. If we can have government bodies like the National Cohesion embrace things like mediation, then we will be better placed to have them deliver on their mandate, and then we will be able to have peace, and then development will come into place as we all expect.
Gentlemen, and I've picked mediation from the both of you, and I'm looking at the mediation that we're having at the Bomas of Kenya. That is the bipartisan talks. The bipartisan talks started out quite well. They died, and then they were resuscitated by former Nigeria President Olusegun Obasanjo. And Doc, you bear me witness that the kind of venom being spit by some of our leaders is actually watering down what we are really looking forward for, or looking forward to, that is peace. We've had both sides from both divide, the Kenya Kwanza and also the Azimio side, even give some conditions. If these talks are not concluded within that duration, or if we don't talk about this, then we're going to do this. One of the MPs from Kenya Kwanza the day before yesterday was quoted saying that actually the first agenda on the mediation table should be actually to scrap the mediation altogether. So this is watering down the mediation process, which also is going to lead to calmness. We've seen mandamanos are not doing the country any good.
I may not refer this mediation, the bipartisan talk, as a mediation. You know, political talks or political mediations are sometimes referred to as political processes, because they are not anchored on any, as Wakili has mentioned, any international structure where mediation processes are supposed to be done. Now, the bipartisan talk, you know, with all those conditions that each of them are placing on the table, there are a number of issues we need to look at it and what is making it so unstable. One thing that is making it unstable is that they are all speaking outside the
outside bombers.
Yes, outside bombers. And that means everyone is speaking what is in his mind. Specifically, when you start discussing issues that are supposed to be agreed upon as an individual, when you go out in you know, burials or in devolution conference, it is like nobody is interested in the sitting. We could still talk everything we want outside there. So that you lose the meaning of coming together and having logical discussion and coming up with a resolution. That is one. Two, unfortunately, the ambassador to
the US,
opened up Pandora's box, where I know from the time we started issues related to demonstrations, when we started issues related to you know, these bipartisan talks, every other person in this country, all of us, we thought international communities, including the Azimio wings, they thought that international community had the same feeling that elections were never fair and free, and therefore they were supporting Azimio team. I mean, indirectly. That is what we thought earlier on. But when she...
Yeah, because they were quiet in the first place.
Exactly. Then when she went to devolution and threw a bombshell there, the whole dynamics of bipartisan issues changed. And that's how Raila, when he went there, started, you know, smoking out serious issues that perhaps a leader like that wouldn't have talked about in such a forum. Because leaders usually, they don't attack each other or individually, they only talk about general things. But when it comes to individual, you are not campaigning. It is something that you are talking about. And calling for an ambassador that will going to call you back was something that not very much, you know, friendly. But again, the deputy president also responded to him. You see the point? That means the discussion that will have been very much fruitful in Bomas. Now the leaders of that discussion are talking on a different wavelength. And therefore, whatever that is discussed in that area, if it is not favoring either of the parties, then it will be just again a waste of another resources. I know we are using our resources to keep them there so that they discuss this issue. So I think I may not call it by mediation. I may not call it, let's call it bipartisan talk, as they even call it. And we will look forward to having the fruitful outcome as they finish their discussion. But again, some of the discussions are a bit unique. You know, when you are talking about issues of IEBC, electioneering process, it has nothing to do with some teams of Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. You must bring on board every other person who is involved. One, we have a lot of parties and we have political leaders from different parties. These ones are supposed to be involved. They should be in the front line. There is no party which is superior to the other one in terms of election process.
Just hold the thought. We now cross over to the Bomas of Kenya, where the spouse of Deputy President Dorcas Rigathi is having a sensitization meeting for religious leaders on prevention and treatment of HIV, drugs, alcohol and substance abuse among men and boys. Let's first of all have a listen.
We were talking to them. Sadly, 55 had committed suicide.
Just in case you joined us, this is News Check and we are looking at the state of the nation, and we were looking at some of the skirmishes that we have witnessed in the country. And Dorcas, you were saying that indeed something has to give. You can wrap up your point and then I get to Wakili.
I mentioned the issue related to the bipartisan talk, and one of the things that emerged, which has been placed as a requirement or as a condition, was issues related to electioneering. And I mentioned very clearly that if it is matter of IEBC, we need to involve everybody. It's not few individuals that will want to establish a structure that will going to govern everybody. We have leaders of other political parties who are not either in Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. These have to be involved. They have to be involved on equal measure. Secondly, we have religious leaders who play a very great role in the process of electioneering. We have other, public participation, which is anchored in our constitution, and therefore we must also engage the public in every county in regards to what changes or what opinions technical people are proposing. And therefore, the essence of the bipartisan talk, as we speak, is between two very few individuals who probably have their own interest. But the subject of the matter that they want to be discussed there is completely out of order if they take the responsibility of representing everybody and want to discuss issues that requires every person's being involved. Therefore, my take on that is that as you see every day, there are new chapter that they introduce, and I see they don't agree on anything, and rather they will discuss something, disagree, and come out and tell us what what each and every person will want to hear or want to say, other than what they have conclusively agreed together and came out with it, so that it is beneficial. People view it as beneficial to this nation. So I think the bottom line is that when the two leaders spoke about the status, as the ambassador mentioned, I mean, Kenya has had many elections, and once the election process is completed, including verification of the election disputes by the Supreme Court, once that is concluded, we assume the election is free, fair, and credible. We have no any other doubt other than that, because those are the procedures and the processes that has been put in place by the Constitution, and we can't override over the Constitution for an individual gain.
All right. And Council, I'm going to build it from where Doc has left it. Looking at a possible diplomatic tiff that could ensue from some of the rhetorics from our politicians. We are talking about the international community, United States being one of the key trading partner, and look at the aid that they gave the country. And when as politicians come out to castigate, it does interfere with our foreign policy, doesn't it?
It does. I would want to pick it from where Dr. has left it, the ambassador was most probably speaking, because you remember, at that point, just a day or two before, the observer groups had given their reports. The AU observation group had given their report and given the elections a clean bill of health, and some other bodies who are also observing. So I think that is the comfort she was working from, that indeed everybody is certified, and even the Supreme Court, because she did talk about the Supreme Court also certifying that the election was actually free and fair, and they didn't see, according to what was presented before them, they could not see anything which could make it not to be credible. So that is the comfort she was working from. But from what you've asked, whether that is going to give rise to a diplomatic tiff, it already has. And I understand the ambassador of such a stature cannot just come out of the blues and communicate something which the boss in Washington does not believe in. So it means that Washington fully believes that what she said is actually the true position. Otherwise, you could have seen a statement in Washington already retracting a statement saying that that's our own opinion. But that has not happened. So it means through the blessing of the people in Washington, they feel the same, that indeed the election was free and fair. So that's why she felt comfortable to raise such remarks. As to whether she should have put it or raised it in such a forum, the jury is still out on that, because diplomatically, according to the diplomatic book, you're not supposed to be involved directly in the affairs of the country where you have been sent to be an envoy. You're supposed to be operating from behind the shadows to communicate the message that which you, to the people, you call these people and communicate to them whatever it is that, because you don't want to choose sides, because you never know how it's going to turn out, and you're going to polarize a country. And I mean, I could also imagine of a scenario, you know, even the US election is still contentious up to now, because Trump believes the election was not fair, and they say that they are charging him because of the things he was trying to express. So I could imagine a Kenyan ambassador also commenting on a US issue like that. That would be very, very chaotic. So I think it's only fair that we also follow the diplomatic process, so that we don't have unnecessary hits where there shouldn't be any.
Thank you so much, Gibson Gisore, an advocate of the High Court and also a leadership and governance expert. Thank you for your insight. Dr. Harun Issack, also a leadership and governance expert. Unfortunately, we have to end it right here because we have to cross over to Budapest. A lot of action there last night. The finals of the women 100 meters was something to see. But remember, we are showing this all live from Budapest in Hungary. Kenya still hunting for gold, but we are hopeful tonight we're gonna get something. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. We can continue this conversation on social media. My name is Njue, and Lucy Mwaura is now our sign language interpreter. Earlier on we had Lensa Odingo. Thank you so much indeed for watching, and do have yourself a blessed afternoon.